Hi, it's Tools Friday with FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Today we'll be talking about bug bounty and how users can identify programs that are not rewarding from the descriptions of the scope, out of scope, and other tight ends or bottleneck rules that were placed by the platform or the organization that owns the bug bounty campaign. So why we decided to introduce this today as our tools is because giving you automation tools, declaring tools that you can use in hunting for bugs without actually giving you strategy is worthless. And why are we also taking this direction today is because out there, almost everyone talks about using Nuclei, Subfinder, SQL Map, PubSuite, and all other forms of tools or automation tools in penetration testing or bug bounty hunting. But even if you use all these tools and you hunt for bugs, there are a lot of rules, there are a lot of strict instructions that you have to adhere to. So if you do not adhere to those instructions, it's like having these tools and a waste of time. Imagine you got a program, right? And you got all the necessary information about that domain. And now you conduct a recon to obtain the subdomains associated with that particular domain, right? So after you've gotten these domains, what's the next step? You start using these your automation tools to test for various vulnerabilities. It might be XSS, it might be CSRF, it might be SQL injection, whatever forms of vulnerability that you're very akin to or you're specialized in. So when you conduct all these automations and you finally discover vulnerability and you're like, okay, you've gotten something right and you report it. Then by the time you start negotiating with the triager, you discover that information such as is out of scope, is not applicable, is part of the problems that you're facing. Then subsequently, this vulnerability would not be rewarded a bounty. And of course, even though it's not rewarded a bounty, organizations will still fix it. Most organizations, if they are kind, they might give you a vote of thanks or give you some merch as a way of showing appreciation for such discovery. Others will be very mean. They will never give you any reward, but still they will fix the vulnerability. And you will be like you've wasted your time and your resources putting all the energy just to discover vulnerability that's not rewarding, right? So these are part of things we'll discuss today. And by the time you're done watching this video, you would have a very good structure on how to choose a program and as well start hunting for bugs. This is also not a penetration testing video. We are not demonstrating any tools. We're just describing a few informations that are very necessary for you to look out for if you really want to be successful in bug bounty programs. So without further ado, let's just get started with today's episode. On today's episode, we'll be talking about bug bounty scope and out of scope, explained in depth. And once we are done, we'll pick a platform and give you some hints or some information you should be looking out for before choosing if that program will be worth it or not. Because to be honest, at the end of the day, it's unproductive that you choose a platform even if you discover something that is, high impact, but the reward is too low or not encouraging. This can also discourage you thinking that the entire process was just not recommendable or in such a way it's not encouraging for you to look forward to continue hunting for bugs on the platform. So on scope, in a layman's terms, or common meaning is what is permissible or acceptable. So when you go to a platform, there's always a list of information that will be displayed that are acceptable or permissible. And this is what we consider as in scope or scope. It's also what is bounty worthy or considered as a vulnerability in the aspect that there are some vulnerabilities with over time of being, a recurring event are now considered as not a serious vulnerability to be rewarded. So to not waste bug hunters' time, most organizations would list this as out of scope or not in scope. Alternatively, they would also accept such vulnerability to be in scope if the impact is high. So you should also look out for the vulnerabilities that are in scope that are rewarding or the organization has listed out among the scopes that were described or provided that is rewarding. These are the informations you should also look out for. Third point on scope is that it consists of domains, tools. For domains, most organizations would give domains that are acceptable that you should test on. And those domains are what we call they are in scope or in scope domains. Then for tools, while some organizations will allow automation tools, most organizations also do not accept the usage of automation tools in testing their platforms. So you should look out for this, because at the end of the day, if you get a result with your automation tool, these organizations will definitely fix the vulnerability, but you have breached the law or you have breached the rules of engagement. And to them, they don't care if they are very strict or they are very, very sneaky in such a way. Yeah, organizations can also be sneaky. If they are very sneaky, they might take the bugs, fix it, but still hold on to the rules that you did not adhere to the rules by not using automation tools. Most organizations also will allow you to use automation tools on their platform, but they might also indicate the number of requests you should make per second or per minute, depending on what they think is okay, that will not impact their server or their operations. So these are the things you should look out for as well, to ensure that at the end of the day, you're not breaching some rules regarding automation tools. So on out of scope, we're talking about vulnerability disclosure. Some vulnerabilities are not acceptable. Outrightly, the organizations will tell you that they do not accept such. So most of these vulnerabilities range from rate limits. In the past few years, rate limit was a thing, but now with the advancement of technology, most organizations don't consider rate limits anymore as a vulnerability. Also, they mark content security policies. Missing content security policies also in recent times also have been considered as being out of scope. Most organizations will outrightly state that they do not accept such vulnerabilities as a report. So you do not waste your time looking for CSP, which is content security policies. You make sure you avoid those sneaky, vulnerabilities that you think that is a quick or easy wins that people would always report. Most organizations do not accept those vulnerabilities because to them it's not something they consider as high impact. So they do not want to waste their time reading reports regarding such findings. Then this is very, very, very important. The third one, which is the rules that include you providing the header, your platform ID. Yes, most organizations would insist that you provide your platform ID. For instance, if you're using HackerOne, they will tell you to provide at HackerOne. And this is a way of identifying you or other persons who have been testing their platform. You might also not breach any of these rules of engagement or in scope and out of scope. But because you miss inserting your ID, most organizations would use that as a means of penalizing you. Yes, organizations can be that strict, but they are not strict when a hacker hacks them and demands high payment of ransomware. This is the world we live in. The good guys always get the pain for being good, while the bad guys always get the reward for being bad. But still, you have to do the good stuff. You always have to be the good guy and not be swayed away because of other people are doing bad and getting away with it. So just keep doing good and follow the rules. These are very, 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 very important that you do. Aside having skills in pen testing and experience with various vulnerabilities, these in scope or out of scope are very vital in the sense that if you do not adhere to just one point in that in scope or out of scope, it can result into you, losing the reward that is rightly yours for discovering such vulnerabilities. So aside all these things we've just explained right now, we'll be picking a platform and teaching you what we look out for when we want to hunt a bug. Because at the end of the day, it's not worth it. Like I tell you, you consider a lot of factors such as duplicates. You're not the only one hunting. Time, I won't consider it as time resourceful because bug bounty is not time resourceful until you get a reward. So as long as you've not gotten a reward, it's called time wasted. So imagine you waste all those times at the end of the day you still do not get reward. Either you're faced with duplicates or some other hiccup along the way in your report. So you ask yourself, is it worth it? Is the platform worth it? Or is the organization whose campaign you are involved in regarding the bug bounty program, is it worth it? So these are other necessary factors you have to look at. So we will demonstrate by showing you the key points. We call it the salient points you should look out for when you want to choose a campaign. Once those points have been checked and they are not satisfactory, just skip that campaign. You don't have to waste your time that, okay, you might be the one that will be the messiah or the guy who is going to find the biggest bug and get rewarded. Organizations don't think the way you do. That's the truth. And you cannot always assume that because you have a good intention that the person you're submitting this report to is also going to have a good intention. Everybody is a cutthroat out there. It's a rat race. And the best way for you to exclude or minimize yourself from getting too involved into the rat race is to look out for something very important. As long as you follow these rules we are going to tell you today, we are pretty sure it's going to help you along the way of you hunting for bugs in our bug bounty program. So today we choose a platform. We go through HackerOne. We'll be blurring out the organization's domain in this video. Please bear with us because this is not acceptable. And although there's nothing revealing here, but most organizations will always have issues with things like this. So you have to be very, very careful not to breach or offend anyone, especially high profile organizations. So you can see here, we are picking this organization. And here we can see, these are the first things we check for before we look out for the scope. We'll look at the reports they have received so far. And here you can see they have received over 2,000 reports. And these assets in scope is not much, about 33. So you can see 2,000 plus reports and just 33 assets. Now, we go to the average bounty program. They pay an average of $500 in USD. This is not so bad, an average, but when we start looking at other information, you will know the reason why this is also not feasible in terms of the reward. So after we've done checking these three things, now this is a red flag, this is a yellow flag, this is a green flag. So these are just the three, right? Because there's a lot of people hunting this program, obviously, or a lot of reports they are receiving daily. The next thing we have to go and look at, forget about this gold standard. We're not talking about this. This is the organization rules. So they will always tell you that safe harbor should not disclose any information to the public and all that. And the next you look out for is who is managing this bug. So if they have a reliable triager or who manages the bounty program, then it's good for you. At least you know that that is resolved already, right? And you don't have to worry. So you can see here it's managed by HackerOne. So it's a good thing. HackerOne is cool. And they have good team in HackerOne that are very, very responsive and fast in triaging reports. So the next thing now we have to look out for is, when is the program ending? This is very, very important because the closer to a program ending is, the more people send reports. People will always want to be the last minute person because you know, most people will be relaxed, right? And a few people also will be sending. So if it's ending in a few days, it shows that, okay, a lot of people will be sending in their reports and there are chances that there will be a lot of duplicates. So you can see in 9 days, this is also a red flag. For us, we do not consider this as a good, investment of time. Forget about what you see on social media. People say they win a lot of bounties. It's okay, they do win this money. It's not false, but most times they spend days on a program, not just hours. You'll be checking for API calls, you'll be checking for various vulnerabilities, tracking the domain, going back and forth, using your tools, troubleshooting problems, maybe registering accounts. These are all a lot of series of steps you have to do. So imagine you have to spend 3 days with a platform, right? So if you remove 3 days from here right now, it's about 6 days left. Within that 3 days, imagine the number of reports they would have received. So logically, is this feasible? Is it okay for you to get yourself involved in this? Of course, it's not, right? Now, the next thing we have to look at is this. Do they provide bonus? Yes, they provide bonus. So this is good. It's a green flag. So for a valid report, they give 250 US dollars for each hacker's first report. So whatever first report you send, you'll be getting a bonus. So this is a green flag, this is a green flag. Then this multiplier on submission rated high on criticality. So 1.25 times the multiplier in terms of rating, right? Now, once we are done with all this, right, the next thing we want to do, forget about the money. You will go back to the money later. The next thing we do is check their response time. You do not want to submit a report that it takes an average of 30 days to, reply to. I've had people who submitted reports as far back as 2023, January, February, and they are just receiving the response in 2024. You can see how lackadaisical some organization can be. Like they are very, very, very relaxed in terms of security. And these are big organizations, they have a lot of customers they are dealing with, and they don't take their security posture serious. So these are the things you also have to look out for. You don't need to waste your time. Time should be money. When it comes to bug bounty programs, always consider time to be money. Don't consider time to be like you're flexing, you're a hacker. No, consider time to be money. So if it's not rewarding, then just stay away from it. It's for your own good and for your own mental health. Trust me. You don't want to be tracking the program, the reports you submitted, like, oh, have they replied me yet? What did they say? Things like this will also, cause a lot of tension and put you off balance. So if you look at the response time and it's like days that is exceeding more than 1 week, just discard it. Just forget about the campaign. Don't waste your time. Except you're a very patient person or you have other programs that, you've also been tracking and they have been responsive and, putting some coins into your bank or into your wallet, then it's okay. You can also try this platform. But honestly, be it whether you are receiving money or you're not, just stay away from platforms that take more than a week to reply or to give you a feedback regarding your report. You do not have to waste that time and mess up with your whole routine in mental health. Then we'll now look at triaging. Yes, this is very good. So when you check out the triage time, okay, 11 hours is very, very perfect. This is a green flag. This is a green flag. So we know that, okay, this triaging time to fix, to get response from the triager is very, very fast. And this is not even more than a day. So it's perfect. Then also average time from submission to bounty. So what this implies is that from the time the vulnerability was submitted to you receiving your bounty is about 11 hours. So it's not even up to a day. This is also a green flag, very green flag, which means that as you submit, give or take, within a span of 1 to 2 days, you should be getting your money into your PayPal or your bank account or any other forms of receiving your reward. So it's a green perfect flag. Is you're working and you're seeing your reward. It's a very sweet thing, and you should consider the platform to be okay. Now, average time to resolution, 2 weeks to 1 day. So the maximum is 2 weeks. The minimum is 24 hours. So it's also good. It's a green flag, meaning from the time you submitted the report till the time they resolve the issue, it's not exceeding 2 weeks, and it's not exceeding 24 hours in terms of minimum time frame. So this is very good. This is very, very good. This is very, very good. Now, after we've done this, right? I know you're looking at the reward. Just hold on. The next thing you want to go is to go to program statistics. This is very, very interesting for you to also look out for. Remember previously we said they have over 2,500 reports, right? So we want to check that statistics over what they have paid so far. Now they said total bounties paid of over 2,000 reports. It's not even up to $20,000. And this organization, though we're blurring their domain name out, is a very, very popular organization. I mean, this money, I'm pretty sure, is not even up to what the CEO of the company earns a month. But this is what they are paying people for securing their platform and making sure they don't, run out of their profit or get customers' sensitive data exposed to the public. And you can just imagine, how stingy can such organization be? So these are the things you look out for. So when you check that statistics and cross-check the reward they've given so far, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So this is a red flag. Honestly, this is a red flag. Don't just consider, imagine over 2,000 reports. This is what they've paid so far. You can now imagine, what's an average pay is going to be like. And you can see an average pay is about 500. So over the years or over the months they've been running their campaign, they have paid so far, and they've not exceeded an average of 500. And the highest bounty paid is the next thing you have to look up, which is the top bounty. The top bounty paid is 1,500 USD out of the 2,000 plus reports. It's insane that the reports are very, massive, but the highest reward is not even up to $2,000, which is a sign that these guys might really, really be very tight regarding their out of scope, which we'll be getting there soon. Then you can see reports received in the last 90 days. So in the past 3 months, they've received over 291 reports. You can see people are already giving up in this kind of platform. So the past 3 months, they've not even received up to 500 reports. So people are already, like, this guy is, really not so cool. And the last report resolved was 3 days ago. And total reports they have resolved, you see, over 2,000 plus reports received, over 2,000 plus reports resolved. And total hackers tanked so far in all these reports is just 17 hackers. You can see that despite their popularity and the number of reports, gotten so far, only 17 hackers have gotten the recognition of thanks. So that being aside, these are very, very important. So when you now check out the statistics, you already know where you're heading to with this platform. So if you want to get yourself involved with this platform, then it's cool. But if you don't want to get yourself involved with this platform, then you just know that, okay, this is your time to exit and look for other programs. That being said, in C for critical, they pay for primary targets between 4,000 and 20,000. And for secondary assets between 1,500 to 4,000. Forget about, medium and high. Critical is the most important thing. Or let's say we consider high and critical. So these two is what you should look out for. Forget about medium and low. So if critical for primary targets is about 20,000, right? It's definitely going to be a very, 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 really critical, report. It's not just about SQL. It might be an SQL that would cause a very dangerous impact on the organization that would, receive that maximum reward for critical, which is 20,000 USD. Then you can see for corporate assets, the critical, this is the reward for mobile targets, for secondary assets. Now, this is the maximum for the primary targets, and this is the maximum they've paid so far. So it's not even up to the maximum fee of one primary target that is critical in terms of the report gotten. So you see, this is an outright red flag. I mean, red flag in the sense that look at the bounty being paid and look at the number of reports received so far. Is it worth it? Is the hunting for this type of asset, is it worth it? Or you should just chill and, look for something else that is going to help you or, motivate you to continue hacking or hunting for bugs. So after we've checked all these things right now you can see for corporate, every information here. So let's move on to the guidelines. Okay. So we'll be blurring out these organizations' domain name. Sorry about that. We have to do that for safety reasons and not being disrespectful with the community of cybersecurity. So you can see this is the guidelines that is required of the researchers or people who are going to hunt this program. They strictly said, do not access customer or employee personal information, pre-release or whatever it is. And if you accidentally access any of these, please stop testing and submit the vulnerability. So you also have to confirm that your vulnerability works, which in some cases might require you tampering with one or two personal data. But they told you to not do that. But if you do, just stop and report the vulnerability. Then the next thing they said here is stop testing and report the issue immediately if you gain access to any non-public application or non-public credentials. So this is done. It's okay. It's a green flag. Do not degrade users' experience, disrupt production system, or destroy data during security testing. Okay, this is understandable. It's acceptable. It's standard. It's gold standard. So there's nothing wrong there, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be conducting pen testing, right? And you mess up the target business operations, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. It's gold standard. It's standard. It's okay. And they now strictly stated here, perform research only. When you say this word only, it means strictly follow the rules in the scope or out of scope. So set out below. So we'll check that out later. Then use the HackerOne report submission form to report the vulnerability information to us. So strictly also do not send them email or any other forms of platform. Just strictly submit. This is also gold standard. There's nothing wrong with this. I believe this is a way they want to have an organization of how they track the reports of various vulnerabilities received from various ethical hackers or bug hunters. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's a gold standard. Then they say submit any necessary screenshots, screen captures, network requests, reproduction steps, or similar using the HackerOne submission form. This is also gold standard. There's nothing wrong with this. It's perfect. They say when investigating a vulnerability, please only target your own account and do not attempt to access data from anyone else's account. Good. This is also okay. It's gold standard. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to strictly adhere to that rules, not taking other users' information. In case if there is any damage in the process, definitely it's going to only affect your own account, right? Then it tells you securely delete the information that may have been downloaded, hashed, otherwise stored on the system used to perform the research. But you also do not want to retain the data of this organization. It's also gold standard. There's nothing wrong with it. Perfect. And it's also okay. Now, if you fill these requirements, the organization will work with you to understand and attempt to resolve the issue quickly, confirming the reports within 7 days of submission, like we previously said. So this, as long as within 1 week span, you're getting a response from the organization, there is nothing wrong with such platforms. So we can consider this to be gold standard, and it's okay. I mean, you're not the only one sending reports, and they also have other things doing, not just sitting all day waiting for people to report vulnerabilities, right? So this is gold standard. It's okay. And they will pay you for your research for unique vulnerabilities. that meet the guidelines listed below if you are the first to report the issue to us using the HackerOne portal. Again, gold standard, and they also stated here you should submit via the HackerOne portal. Do not send them email, do not contact them privately regarding the report submission. You just have to send it via HackerOne by using the submission form. So to encourage responsible disclosure, we will not bring a lawsuit against you. You see what we just said right now previously? Or ask law enforcement to investigate you if we determine that your research and disclosure meet these requirements and guidelines. So you see, they have given you conditions of not taking the law against you or using the law against you. So this is the reason, like we previously disclosed, that you have to read this information. If you do not want to waste your time finding some information that will be fixed, and instead of getting a reward, you're getting a penalty, you know, it's very, 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 very disappointing. And it might send you into depression or even make you start cursing out organizations on platforms such as X, also known as former Twitter, or any other platform. You don't blame organizations, just play by the rules, obey their rules, follow the law. And if you're ripped apart, then you can always have a benchmark or a foundation to, you know, put forward your argument and fight for your right. So they strictly said as long as you adhere to the guidelines, they will not use the law against you. So I believe that the opposite of using the law against you means you did not follow the guidelines. So please always read all this information. Just take 10-15 minutes of your time, go through, scan through, be fast at it, get every necessary information you need before you start firing up your automation tools or start pen testing or hacking a target. It's very, very important that you do. So they further stated, if you have questions about responsible disclosure of results for submission, please reach out to us via submission page. If you have any question regarding the program, please reach out to us. They gave an email at hackerone.com, which is also cool. There's nothing bad with it. So reading out through this information right now, they also gave targets and for vulnerabilities that may be present in different parts of a web application. View may provide at its discretion an additional reward for those reports that detail multiple vectors for injections, XSS, or similar. This reward is in addition to the award range detailed below. So you can see based on severity, if it's critical, maximum is about 20,000, minimum is about 4,000. I mean, they've stated here multiple vectors for injection, XSS or similar. So definitely they're talking about XSS here, SQL injection. So basically, XSS is not discarded here. They accept XSS, so you can, you know, hunt for that on their program. Then for secondary targets, systems less impact primary, we're not mentioning the names, but you get the information we're trying to say. Experience and so will be paid to at a lower rate than primary targets. So secondary targets are basically not the primary target. Primary doesn't mean it's a lesser target. Primary means it's the core focus. Okay? I mean, you can't be rating these conditions like you're in school. You know, in school, the secondary is higher than the primary, right? But the primary is the foundation. So here, primary means the main assets, the main domain that is, you know, bounty worthy, and of course, critical or high severity. In this case, to that primary target will definitely come with juicy rewards or money. So here they also stated for their mobile targets, the reward, the pay, the minimum for critical, the maximum for critical, the minimum for high, the maximum for high. Then for corporate targets, high based on the CBSS. And of course, not just that, they segmented these various rewards. So if you are focused in targeting domains or the primary targets, then you know what you're looking for. If you're focused on targeting their mobile apps, you know what you're looking for. And if you're focused on targeting the organization network, you also know what you're looking for. So these are lots of things. We're not going to read through all this. I'm just giving you a clue. And here they have given us a list of primary targets, which is here. So you can see, and here they are stating that all aliases of bacon dot their domain submission containing variations of the URL will not be treated as unique. So you see, this is a bottleneck description of what is required of you as a pen tester or ethical hacker on the target. The stress in this whole information provided is quite crazy, you know. And organizations most times, I believe, do these things on purpose because they know some people will definitely make mistakes and in the process discover discover bugs and, disclose to them. While these bugs in some cases might not be rewarded depending on the triager. If the triager is a responsible person, they might consider that, okay, this might be out of scope, but also has an impact on the organization. So we can negotiate the terms and find a way to, compensate you for your time and the effort you placed or you put, hunting the program on their platform. But if at the end of the day, you're not rewarded for that, then you don't blame them as well because they've also disclosed this in their, description that this is not acceptable. So they also disclosed their Open Connect CDN, which is known as Content Delivery Network, and other domains as well that is inclined to the static content for those who are good at hunting static pages for information disclosure. These are also very important that you should look at those as well. And for mobile targets, they gave a link where you can download their applications for you to decompile and scan through the source code definitely and find a way to obtain the manifest and see if there are any other informations you can, get in terms of security loopholes and weaknesses that exist in the code that makes up the app. So they gave you a link where you can download those apps. You can see it here. Sorry, we have to blur out their names, but you get the point of the whole thing, right? Good. So then for corporate targets, they gave information. This is quite a long read. You can see we are more than 20 minutes explaining all these things. And at the end of the day, we have not even, gone to the out of scope yet. So the things that are very, very stressful when you go through all these things at the end of the day and you now hunt this target and you discover that the report you submitted is out of scope. So you look at this is, time wasting. It's not a good time management. When you read all this information and you know that this thing is a very tight end and you have rate this based on the various factors we described in this, at the beginning of this video, then you have an idea that, man, this is full of, unworthy effort. So it's not an effort that you want to put, and at the end of the day, you just, waste your time to obtain a duplicate after you've done all you're supposed to do. So next we have to scroll down is to check. These other informations are too much, but they are not really pertinent to missing rewards. So we'll just keep a few of this information and we head on to something very important for you. And here you can see report must contain private key materials that enables the decryption of video streams at the time reported. Now, basically what they're trying to say, if you encrypt the video that was submitted, the private key must be inserted in the report. But for those who do not use any encryption to encrypt the video, so there is no need for you to submit any private key. Then submissions related to screenshot or screen recording are not in scope. Submissions must include actual private key material. Wow. You see? So imagine you have to provide a private key of the material. So I guess what they're trying to say is that you have to encrypt this and provide a private key. Then they further said report must contain specific, clearly articulated and actionable details relating to how the keys were discovered or extracted to qualify for a reward. Okay, so here they are talking about private keys or keys regarding the application, right? So these keys are very important that you report them and you submit them to the organization. The report must contain specific, clearly articulated and actionable details relating to how the keys were discovered or extracted to qualify for reward. So when you compile these apps and you find the private key, how you got those keys should be included in the report and of course properly described in the report. It's very essential that you follow these rules when you're submitting your report. Then for secondary targets, they listed a few information here. They stated that the targets are systems that have less impact on the primary. This is the main, we'll not talk about it. Experience, and so will be paid at a lower rate than the primary targets. So this is also still on the secondary targets, and the reason why they are going to pay lesser fee or reward than the primary target. Then we further go down. They now gave a list of the open source overview or targets. So these are links to GitHub repositories. So we're blurring this out as well. And if you go through this, you can see a lot of information are provided here. You have to also ensure that these are in scope. So they said these domains are okay for you to go through them. So I think it's also cool that you do. Then now let's see here. Apart from the program level out of scope items, the following elements are typically deemed out of scope. Now you can see report based on console misconfiguration. Boom, out of scope. Report dependent on the malicious admin. Boom, out of scope. Additionally, please note that the internal implementation of console.me has diverged from OSS version over the last few years. Okay, so Terraform specifically deployment components provided in the repository, Terraform, CDK, Helm, Packer are not used by the organization internally and are provided for reference only. Okay, so let's scroll down to more information that has something about this organization. Okay, now here they say reports involving modification of local WIP configuration. Report that necessitates access to alter an individual local WIP configuration are typically out of scope. So you see these are bottleneck out of scope information provided, and means that you have to adhere to these informations. If you do not adhere to these informations, you're just wasting your time. Even if you find any or you discover any vulnerabilities pertinent to this that were stated out of scope, it's about 90% to 10%, chance that they might consider listening to you, to find a way to consider your report as something rewarding. You can see reports relying on malicious misconfigured console.me instances. So local remote code execution. So specific commands that may result in local RC are generally considered out of scope. Local here refers to a specific WIP command run by the user on their laptop. So if a malicious user has access to run commands on the user's laptop, then exploit this is unnecessary. So if a malicious user has access to run commands on the user's laptop, where they are definitely running the app or watching the program via the web, then exploiting this is unnecessary. So as saying here, all other open source projects are not in scope. So only a few open source projects are in scope. Imagine you discover API keys in other open source projects that are out of scope. That would not be considered as rewarding. So you see, this is very, very, very stressful. You have to compress all these informations together and build this information in a text file. And once in a while, when you're doing your pen testing, you make reference to this file. So imagine you do these things and at the end of the day, you have a duplicate. Is it worth it? Definitely not worth it. Then now they are talking about non-rewardable targets. So our reward philosophy is that we reward points or bounty. So when we make a change based on sufficient impact to the organization, however, to ensure that we're incentivizing impactful findings, we have a few areas of submissions that are generally not eligible for payment. These will be rewarded with kudos points only. So even though you discover these vulnerabilities, like we previously said, they will accept it, but they will just tell you, thank you for finding this. But sorry, we cannot part away with our hard-earned cash for reward towards you. So if you're a very, very good guy, or if you're a nice guy, then waste your time in doing this. To me, the organizations are making money, so why should you waste your time looking for vulnerabilities that only give you thank you? It's not making sense, and it's not from a point of being rude, and it's not from a point of being funny. It's just from a point of being realistic. Out there is a lot of bills that need to be paid. You definitely have electricity bills to pay. You have to take care of your meal. You have to buy clothes to look good. You have to hang out with your friends and buy a cup of coffee or a bottle of drink and discuss about nature, about life, about the future, about other plans. And these are money. So imagine sitting on your decks for about 2 to 3 days trying to hunt a target, and by the time you're done, it's only thank you. The resources spent, the tools, researched on just to get that bounty, and your reward is thank you. It doesn't make sense, right? Whereas if a threat actor who is not an ethical hacker gets hold of such information, they would definitely set it on the dark web, or they would use the information to, conduct something sinister. So always look out for these informations. To me, realistically, I'm not a fan of thanks. Even if you have to work for us, we have to pay you. Where it now boils down to is that how much are we going to pay you? You understand? It's not about saying thank you. Not everything should be thank you. If something is worth rewarding, then please do reward people for their efforts. It's very encouraging and it's going to motivate them, to do more. Especially now that the whole situation about job hunting is now strict. Cybersecurity, people are saying we cannot employ because of the lack of skills or the skill gap. Then you try to go to a platform to hunt for bug bounties. These same organizations are paying peanuts or saying thank you for effort. So who is losing? You have to be very smart whenever you're choosing a program. Be smart. Except like previously we discussed, except you're the kind of person that believe in being the nice guy, and it's unrewarding if you continuously being the nice guy. If these organizations are making millions and billions and they cannot even part away with thousands, why should you also part away with your time that is not even making anything? You see? So they are making lots of money. They are not willing to part away with their own money, but you are willing to part away with your time when you have nothing. So you have to be very smart when you're hunting for a bug. Now we head on to the out of scopes. We can see here the organization. We're going to blur this out, telling you that set-top boxes, smart TV streaming sticks, boom, this is out of scope. In addition, findings fall into the excluded submission types listed below, boom, out of scope. You see, these are all those things, a lot of out of scopes here. We won't be reading this in depth, not to waste time. Pretty sure this video is up to an hour now. We scroll down now, you can see out of scope, focus area. We encourage researchers to focus their efforts in the following areas. Okay, XSS is acceptable, CSRF is acceptable, SQLI is acceptable, SSRF is acceptable, authentication related issue, okay, authorization related issues, data exposure, redirection attacks, remote code execution. Now, previously they stated about remote code execution, but in specific, let's tell you, in a specific situation, right? Where is it? Let's find it. Let's find it. Let's find it. Yep, this one. So here, the local remote is LRCE, right? That may result in local RCE are generally considered out of scope. So local here refers to a specific whip command run by the user on their laptop. So if a malicious user has access to run those commands on the user's laptop, then exploiting whip is unnecessary. So now they come here and they say you should not local, but actually remote code execution. Then business logic, of course, if you're very good with business logic, it's rewarding, but definitely we know the maximum they pay it's about 20,000. So you can look out for that. MSL protocol, they give a domain, you can check it out. Then they said particularly clever vulnerabilities, also known as unique issues that do not fall into explicit categories. So you have to look out for such vulnerabilities as well. Mobile specific APIs. So mobile specific API vulnerabilities are also, rewarding, and they will pay you for that. So you can see, despite the whole information that were listed, they only accept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Only 13 areas. So the rest, forget about it. Then excluded submission types. So it's telling us here that vulnerabilities that exclude careful manual validation, for example, reports based only on results from automated tools and scanners, or which describes theoretical attacks vectors without proof of exploitability, will be closed as not applicable. So you can see they're telling you here that anything automation tools, we do not consider this to be a vulnerability, even though the automation tools discover these vulnerabilities. So you see, you have to find a way to exploit it. And this is the reason why we always talk about learning how to pen test manually. It's very important that you know how to pen test manually when conducting bug hunting on a target. If you rely on automation tools, most organization knows that truly there are a lot of automation tools out there. And when they tell you about manual pen testing, it doesn't mean you cannot use tools like PubSuite, SAP Proxy, or Kadao. These tools they know are real and they exist. Those are not considered automation. It's the process of getting the reports from the automation done. So you have to find a way to manually inject this code, test it. SAP Proxy and PubSuite offers these functionalities with Kadao, whereby you can intercept a request, send to repeater, and replay the request to see the response, configure or add some payloads to the domain link, then see what comes out of it, and boom, whatever it is that you get from there, you can now consider that as a manual pen testing. But if it's just using a scanner to scan and get information and submit that as a report, they are not considering that as a vulnerability. So these are the lists that was stated here. It's quite a lot. We won't read this, but scroll through this, watch the video here. You'll be seeing this. We're scrolling this slowly, and you can see a denial of service is not acceptable. But most organizations actually accept this as a vulnerability. But in this case, this organization does not accept this. Mail server misconfiguration is not acceptable. Login or forget password page brute force here. So a few years ago, people get reward for brute forcing attack, but now nobody talks about this anymore. It's considered obsolete. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's not considered a real vulnerability anymore. So service listing imports, internal IP address disclosure, yeah, it's not considered anymore as a vulnerability that much. Most organizations still do, depending on what they have on that asset. But most cases, most organizations don't, so they probably do not accept this as a vulnerability. So issues related to cross-domain policies for software, such as Flash and Microsoft Silverlight. Okay, they are not considered as a vulnerability, so it's out of scope. Usernames through email enumeration, obtained from a website or form, they did not accept this. Login page error, weak password policies, these are quite a lot, you can see. So weak capture or capture bypass, this is actually a vulnerability in some organization, but you can see here they stated they do not accept this as a vulnerability. And all the vulnerabilities, phishing attack, definitely that's not considered a vulnerability. What else? And you can see that's it. That's quite a lot of list. But so far, the primary ones which are more complicated, acceptable, which are these ones as we can see here, right? Then towards the end, we can see that the program or engagement does not allow disclosure. So you may not release information about vulnerabilities found in this program or engagement to the public. So even after you've been rewarded, oh, sorry, they do not accept that. So you cannot disclose the reward publicly. You just keep it to yourself and spend your money quietly. Kidding. You spend your money usefully and quietly, of course, you can tell with your friends. But what they are trying to say is you cannot just, like we randomly see on X or Mastodon, you say, I just got paid this amount of bounty on this information found, on this vulnerability, it's closed. So things like that is unacceptable. That's what they're telling you. So you have to ensure you do not do that when you're hunting this target. So data deletion. Okay, this is where it's tricky. Any data cached or stored during the testing must be immediately deleted after the report submission. So once you submit a report, it's considered that, okay, you have rounded up it's not investigation. Sometimes I always want to say that investigation, forensics. So you've conducted your hunting or hacking on the target. So you should always clear out the cache on your browser. And if you have any information such as domain recon, delete them. You have to delete them. I know some users will say, okay, I need to store these domains. I need to visit them back again. Please do not do that. For some reasons, I do not know why people do it, but just don't do it. If you really want to get the domains back again, just go back to the target program on the platform you're hunting. In this case, it's HackerOne, right? And get the domain again and do a recon. Why that necessarily doesn't impose an impact on the organization, right? However, any actions you take when you hunt a program is recorded. Your IP is, somewhat trackable, and your ID also is disclosed, right? Between HackerOne and the clients who registered their bounty program on the platform. But if you leave this domain and your system gets hacked and these informations like the reports were stolen, then the hacker who got those information can replicate those attacks or find other vulnerabilities pertinent to that endpoint, which is in your report. And of course, further cause damage on the organization. So always stick to their rules. Someone said, my home, my rules. So their program, their rules. Okay, stick to their rules and that's it. You don't need to stress yourself much about lots of, problems. Just stick to their rules. Then additional times, your testing must comply with applicable laws. This program is not an offer for employment. So whether to pay a reward and in what amount is at their discretion. You are responsible for any taxes associated with the reward you receive. We may modify or cancel this program at any time. Good. And as you can see previously, when we analyzed this, the program ends in 9 days. So after 9 days, probably they will add more scope or they will just suspend the program. Who knows? That's at their own discretion, right? Like they rightly said. So just look out for that. And these are a few hackers they've thanked. We'll be blurring this out as well. Maybe we'll just blur it a little bit so you can see the background, but you won't see their names. So this so far, when we have analyzed this whole thing and the report received so far and the amount paid, We'll consider this as a pain in the ass. Kidding. We consider this as a stress. Okay. The out of scope and the in scope is so bottleneck, and it's something that it takes smartness not to breach any of those rules of engagement. Yeah, it takes smartness. It's not about you being the best hacker. It's about you being smart. You might be the best hacker, you just want to hack everything hackable just to get vulnerabilities, only for you to discover that, hey, where the vulnerability was hidden was an endpoint that was, tagged out of scope. And it would just be a waste of time, right? So just follow these rules. We've given you a deep hint, and it's not about sharing tools. Like we rightly said, we are committed in teaching you about cybersecurity in depth for beginners, for intermediates, for juniors, for seniors, and for professionals as well, because nobody knows it all and nobody will know it all. You always find information that are very useful and add it to what you have. And by such doing, you keep becoming better and smarter and, of course, intelligent in hunting these programs. So that's it regarding this Tools Friday. And this is an in-depth description. So with other tools you have and the ones we've described so far, you can now know what to do and what to hunt for. So we have finally come to an end of this week's episode, and we hope you've learned something new. If you think this video is interesting, please do not hesitate to give us a like by tapping that thumbs up button, subscribe by hitting the subscribe button to turn on notifications so you'll be the first to get notified when our next episode drops on Tools Friday with FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Thanks for watching and see you next week. Bye for now.